but you need to put stop to this activity, but you still keep doing this. This is about Sophie's character. She's like realizing that this is so stupid that she's now like cheating with future first lady of Texas, because Margo is gonna be like a wife of a governor of Texas. But it's not only about like how she is spending this time. It's about how she is like not capable of, staying out of trouble, because a lot of people basically lead the same lifestyle, but they can easily avoid any problems like surrounding this shit, like alcohol, parties. Like a lot of people do that and they still can avoid all this shit. But she's like getting in all possible troubles in this TV show imaginable. And once she like woke up at that lake, she realized that she didn't really remember last night. She doesn't really know what happened. And she is now like looking like a freaking zombie. Is just going back to hers, and she is realizing that she just, she's lost her gun she's just bought. And her new toy, she didn't even have a chance to use it, but she already know how. She already like got some lessons, to use it. But she realized that she doesn't even remember if she used it last night, or she just lost it, or someone just stole it. And this is like the point when everything is going to be even more like mysterious. And she went to Margot's, that cabin, to see if something missing, if she basically lost that gun at Margot's, at that cabin. And once she came back to that cabin, she just found a little, but not what she was looking for, that underwear of Margot's. And since they were hooking up last night, this is the only thing she remembers, because this is something probably you couldn't really forget, given that this is like her first probably time with women. I don't know how it relates to other events happened at this lake, but something charming in Margot's character telling me that she is way too manipulative and obsessed with this idea of that she can get like everyone doing what she wants. And I was right, like partly I was pretty right about her personality, but not so like 100% right, because she is not completely a bad character. She is not completely like that. And we see that she has quite genuine connection with Sophie. It's not only about her like affair with someone behind her husband's back, because they agreed that Margo cannot really date. She cannot really see any woman, she cannot date or have an affair with men behind her husband's back, or even not with any other man at all, only with women. And when they are together to see each other's getting that activity, So this is like the agreement when they can do whatever they want, but only with women, from what I understood. And since like Margo is already breaking that rule pretty too often, because she was having that affair with the teenager, and now she is sleeping with like Sophie, but it's kind of not completely breaking rules since she is a woman.